And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Tuesday morning's flying weather looking like this. IFR here along the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta coast down to Togiak Bay, and then southwestward along frontal boundary there, coming into the eastern Aleutians, a break here, St. Lawrence Island into Norton Sound. Then some lower conditions here over the Chukchi Sea, and then IFR right along and off the Arctic coast. North slope though, VFR. Good VFR in the interior down to the Gulf of Alaska, and marginal VFR for the southeast coast. That area burns back to the coastline during the afternoon hours on Tuesday with good VFR central eastern interior, most of the north slope there on out to the Arctic coast. Some IFR central and west side though, and lingering IFR here on the southern slopes of the western Brooks Range, and some IFR lingering here along the southwest coast over the southeast Bering Sea area, as well down to the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, now sliding up into Kodiak Island. And then for the day on Wednesday morning, that area slides past Kodiak into the Gulf of Alaska. So marginal VFR for the morning hours for Kodiak, the Alaska Peninsula, and some lower conditions now in over south central Alaska with IFR along the Alaska Range. But north of the mountains there over the eastern interior to the Brooks Range, and most of the north slope stays VFR. Seward Peninsula, mostly VFR. IFR, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, and maybe the southern Kuskokwim Valley, extending back down toward the Alaska Peninsula and the eastern Aleutians. Then for the afternoon, you can see good VFR here over the central Bering Sea and the Aleutians, progressing up to the Unalaska Island area. Pribilos becoming VFR in the afternoon. Marginal VFR eastern Bering Sea to the southwest coast. Kind of a narrow band of IFR here, coming across Bristol Bay, Dillingham, up along the Brooks or the Alaska Range, Brooks Range. Some IFR over the eastern areas, mostly over the Kobuk, Koyukuk Valley, Selawik area. Some more IFR north slope central Arctic coast. And a pretty good area of IFR now along the North Gulf Coast, all the Gulf of Alaska, starting to slip on up into the extreme northern panhandle. But the remainder of the southeast coast here, especially over the inside waters, staying VFR through Wednesday afternoon. Passes, Anatuvik and Adigan, both VFR, so looking really good for the Brooks Range. Alaska Range looking VFR as well through all the passes. Lake Clark, Merrill, rainy, windy VFR. And Isabel, VFR as well. Mintesta, VFR. Tonita, VFR. Portage, same forecast, VFR. Even into Prince William Sound and Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet here over much of interior Alaska, maybe a little lower here, Seward Peninsula, back to the northwest interior with the surface tomorrow morning down just south of the Brooks Range. 4,000 to 5,000 feet, southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. 4,000 to 6,000 feet, Gulf of Alaska in across the Panhandle. Icing, none expected of any significance here over the central and eastern interior, down across the southeast coast, Gulf of Alaska. But pretty good area of considerable moderate rime icing pushing northeastward into the southwest interior across the Kuskokwim Valley, into the lower Yukon River Valley, back down across Bristol Bay, the Aleutian Range, Kodiak Island area. And this southwest jet pushing that moisture right up to the northeast there, up to 130 knots there across the Alaska Peninsula. And then some good northerlies out here over the western Bering Sea up to 105 knots. 9,000 feet southwest, 30 to 40 knots here. Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta down to Alaska Peninsula up to 55 knots, but that's southeast of Kodiak. Maybe some 30 knot southwesterlies there over the northern Kobuk Valley, Brooks Range area. Northerly winds out over the central Bering Sea and the Aleutians, about 35 to 40 knots. 3,000 feet, we've got, let's see, a band of freezing conditions here, 20 to 30 knots, mostly off the coast of the Panhandle, light over the inside waters, light for the Gulf of Alaska, and much of the interior, southwest part of the state here, to Bristol Bay, 30 knots southerlies, and then on the backside of that low near the Pribilos, we've got northerly winds or northeast, north-northeast, 45 knots. And look for some moderate turbulence here for the eastern Aleutians, as well as the central Aleutians, with light to isolated moderate turbulence up to the western Alaska Peninsula, maybe along the east side of Kodiak Island there into Shelikof Strait.